Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Colonel. My question deals with your communication system, and I know that you have identified today that that's one of the top issues, along with your complement. And before coming to the legislature, I was a municipal police officer, so I know how important communications is. And in the rural area that I come from, McKean, Potter County, very rural, and I know how important communications is there. And maybe it's a little bit confusing to your earlier questioning about how we go forward. I know that you have the 800 megahertz system. I know it's been problematic. We've heard it here in the legislature for a long time, and up in my area, it's very spotty coverage. I also know that you have the older VHF system. I heard you talk earlier about needing to go to new radios. Maybe you can explain further, how do we move forward? Do we try to improve the 800 megahertz system? Do we continue to rely on the VHF system? Do we go to a new VHF system? I know that in my area, even the old VHF system didn't always work that great. So maybe you can give us a little more information on how we move forward.
Certainly. I'd be very happy to. The VHS system we have now, which is our backup, called our legacy system that's been in operation for almost 25 years, still works, but the FCC is pulling the frequencies. So that goes away at the end of this year, and that's our backup radio system. But in many of the rural areas, that system outperforms the 800 megahertz. Just because 800 megahertz is line of sight, VHF goes around. What we're proposing and what we intend to do is go to a narrow-banded VHF system. That's important to get moving on because that's our most immediate problem. The 800 megahertz system, the radios that we have from Harris will not be supported within the next year. In other words, they're like a computer, just like your old computer. Sometimes, Microsoft or Dell, they don't cover it anymore. They have new ones. Well, that's what's happening to us. And so we'll be having to make a decision. Now, OA is the organization that's in charge of the radio system. I know they're studying about the 800 megahertz system. It's a big decision whether we continue with that and buy new radios for the 800 megahertz system, whether we move to another system. That's a decision that I know that they're studying now. But that's our second problem. Our first problem is that backup radio. If we had not had a backup radio in the northern tier during the flooding, we would have had a real problem on our hands. I mean, we're the first ones generally responding to problems and getting motorists off the highway. And where there are problem areas, we have to be able to dispatch our troop. It's the life's blood of the Pennsylvania State Police is our communications. If we can't talk to our trooper cars, especially out in areas like where you come from, their effectiveness goes way down because they don't know where the problems are. So it is a big issue and one that we're very concerned about.
So you see the solution as a new narrowband VHF system in all your vehicles, and using the 800 megahertz system as more of a backup for data? Is that?
No, I would not say that 800 megahertz would be the backup. The narrow-banded VHF would be still the backup, although there are some areas where the 800 megahertz system does not perform because of the geography. We would probably use the narrow-band VHF radios for our primary, but that's a very good possibility. As you know, the 800 megahertz system is the system that provides our data. One of the nice things about data transmission, so if you do hit a dead spot where you can't transmit, the data stays there until you hit a repeater that it does work, so the data is then transmitted. There's some delay, but it's voice communication that is our primary concern so that we can get the word out. And if somebody needs assistance, so we could know about it immediately.
I guess my question was, making sure we have dependable communication. So the primary method is a new VHF system, and we'll still have the 800 megahertz system, I guess, for now. But with the priority being having a dependable system. What do you estimate the cost being to be able to put this new VHF narrowband system in place?
Well, it's about $20 million if we purchase. If we lease, it's about $6 million a year. So that's the cost.
Okay. Thank you, Colonel. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.